Hey guys, Matthew here. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to import things into Unreal. So the first thing we need to do is open Unreal. And wait, what are you doing here? I'm making the import video. Why are you walking to? Let go of me.
Hello, Adrian here. Matthew's otherwise disposed, so I'm going to be showing you how to import into Unreal from Rhino. So first off, you want to launch your version of Unreal Engine. Just to make sure you have the correct one installed or you have it installed at all, in the Epic Launcher, just click Library and you should see an engine version in here. If for whatever reason you want an older engine version or you want to work with friends that don't have the most up-to-date one, you can always add a new version just by clicking Add Versions and select whichever one you want and click Install. But because we know which one we're working with, and I'd suggest always using the most recent one, let's just launch 4.16.1. Just as a major note is that the third number in it is the sort of a sort of patch to the major number, which is the second one. So files that are in the second major number, so in this instance 16, are compatible with other ones of that number. So just be aware of that, but try and keep keep your project within a major number. Don't update it because otherwise you might break things. But let's just click Launch and work it out from there. So it's going to take a moment to update, so I'm just going to, it's going to take a moment to load, so I'm going to just cut to that when it's ready. And we're back. So we've got our model, well, we've got a few models that we've prepared earlier, but let's ignore that and click on New Project. So within New Project, we want to click, well, there's a few of these that we're interested in, but for the time being, we want to click First Person. When we are a bit more adept, we'd be opening the virtual reality map, but because we're just starting out, First Person is an easier way to explore your model, and it works without having a Vive at home, so this is a bit more ideal. So let's just click on that. We want to make sure that we have it set to desktop console, because we're not working on mobiles, because, well, those can't run very much. We want to set it to maximum quality, because we want to work for VR, and we'd always want to be using the most pixels and make it the prettiest we can. And we want to have starter content, because starter content allows us to sort of start off with some nice and pretty things like materials and some audio and just some stuff to get started and help you along in making your own project. And last, we want to name our project. Make sure there's no weird characters or spaces because it won't accept it otherwise. And so we can just have, let's say, let's just call it import space, because we're only just starting out and we're just importing stuff. You can name it whatever you like, but I'm just going to import it, import space. And so let's create the project. This is going to take a while again, so I'm going to cut. And we're back. So we have our Unreal window open. We have a whole bunch of new fancy things in here, which we don't exactly know what they are, but we want to just do two things before we start off. The first one is up on the top right, there's this little thing called the World Outliner, and there's a bunch of eyeballs in here, and we want to poke one of those eyeballs. And the one we want to poke is the one that's next to arena geometry, and if we poke that eye, we'll see that it'll clean up our workspace, just so it's a bit easier to start out with and we don't have all this junk kicking around. And the second one, we want to go over to this big green button. Don't click the big green button, but let's click Import next to that, because we want to import our first file. And once we click on that, it'll give us a sort of usual import dialog, and we want to navigate to where we put our FBX. We want to just double click on that, and we'll get this little dialog here. In this dialog, we want to, first off, open up the Show Advanced tile. So in a lot of Unreal sort of interface, there's these advanced toggles. And basically, Unreal hides a bunch of scary stuff from us, and we want to get into that scary stuff. So ignoring the majority of this, we want to go to Combine Meshes. And Combine Meshes basically forces all of our model that we've exported into one little bundle, because otherwise, everything that's a separate object will import separately, and that can make a big mess. And so just toggle that on for the time being. We also want to scroll down, and if we've exported this directly from Rhino and we haven't adjusted any of the scale or rotation, which you should, but well, Matthew's going to be showing you how to do that once he's back in action. But for the time being, if you're exporting directly, just go into the X rotation and type in -90, and this basically flips, instead of having Z being upwards, it makes Y upwards, which is how Unreal understands things. And we also want to scale our model. This model, I believe, has already been scaled, but generally, if you're working in millimeters or meters, Unreal is in that sort of strange pace where it works in centimeters. And so you have to scale to make it in centimeters, otherwise it'll come out humongous or a bit too small. And the last one we want to do is we want to turn off materials and textures, because we didn't really apply any of those ourselves, and if we do set those on, it'll make a whole bunch of materials just to separate out your model, but like it'll just make a mess as well. So let's turn that off. Only really switch these on if you've put on materials yourself and you're really sure you want those materials. So once we're done, we can either click Import All or Import. Import All is good if we want to apply the same settings to a whole bunch of objects, but if we're doing single objects or we want to give special settings to each object, we want to just click Import. And when we click Import, it'll say Importing, as you'd expect. And once that's done, we'll get some errors. And these errors you really want to pay attention to, because they give you a very good indication of where you've stuffed up. And basically there's two in here that one you'll see very frequently, which is no smoothing group information. And Rhino does not support this. So whenever you export from Rhino, you'll get this error. So just be aware of that. It's not your fault. Well, it's your fault for not knowing other software. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. It's just something that happens from Rhino. So that's normal. But the other one you really want to pay attention to, which is static mesh has a large number of materials and may render inefficiently. And what this means is that if you put a lot of objects that have this error, it'll make your file essentially explode and make it have a really low frame rate. And if your tutor puts the Vive headset on with this happening, they'll throw up because it's going to be a low frame rate. So don't do that. And basically this just says that you've not really made an efficient model. And in the following few videos, we'll be covering how to make your model not bring this error up and just make your model sort of smoother and basically work better. But if you ever have sort of queries on what these errors mean, just Google them, and the Unreal forums are really helpful in sort of telling you why these are happening. But let's just close this window. And the last thing we want to do is we'll see that our files come in here. So this is where our files get dumped to. We'll show you how to put them in better places than this, but just to prepare us for the next step, just drag this object, so click and drag, and dump it into your level, and you'll see it's all stuffed up and huge, and we'll show you how to, well, work around this model in the next few videos. So thanks for listening, and see you next video.
This project was supported by a UTS Widening Participation Strategy, First Year Experience Grant, funded through the Australian Government Higher Education Participation and Partnership Program. The videos were produced by Matthew Austin and Adrian Taylor.